Every word you let out is like a sword. It can defend you or it can wound you. A poorly spoken sentence can start wars that last for years, while a well-kept silence can save your inner kingdom. The Stoics knew it. Speaking less isn't weakness. It's the highest form of strength. This video is your guide to mastering that art. Because when you learn to listen more and speak only when needed, you become unbreakable. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear today might forever change the way you live and face the world. Before we go on, if this video is making you think differently, subscribe and join this community of Stoic minds that grows stronger every day. And I want you to write it in the comments. What kind of silence are you going to start practicing to gain power in your life? Or if you prefer, write, "I speak less to live better." Are you ready to let silence change your life? And to help you understand the power of what's coming next, let me tell you a story that happened 2,000 years ago. And yet, even today, it carries a lesson of immeasurable value. Rome, 1st century. In a marble house, surrounded by tall columns and corridors where power is measured in shouts, lives a man who has nothing. No wealth, no family, not even freedom. All he has are his thoughts and the silence that protects him. You see him walking slowly, never meeting anyone's eyes. He's learned that in this place, one wrong word can cost you your life. He listens carefully, speaks rarely. He studies every gesture, every change in tone, like a sailor reading the tides before stepping into the sea. And even though he might look weak from the outside, something powerful is happening within. He's building a fortress no one can see. One day his master, one of the most powerful men in the empire, decides to punish him. Without reason, without mercy. He twists the man's leg with cruelty, bending it as if it were a piece of wood. Anyone else would have screamed, cursed, begged. But he doesn't. He simply says with calm resolve, "If you keep going, it will break." And when it does, he stays silent. He doesn't do it out of fear. He does it because he understood something few people ever grasp. That the most powerful voice is not always the one that shouts, but the one that chooses when to speak. This man was not born free, but his mind was never enslaved. Years later, his ideas would cross centuries, inspiring emperors, soldiers, and thinkers alike. His name was Epictetus, and his entire life was living proof that silence is not surrender. It's strategy. It's strength. It's the tool you use to master your mind and become unbreakable, even when everything else is beyond your control. Before we go any further, if this story struck something inside you, hit subscribe and join this growing community of Stoic minds that's getting stronger every day. And I want you to write this in the comments. What kind of silence are you going to start practicing to gain more power in your life? Or if you prefer, just write, "I speak less to live better." Are you ready to let silence change your life? Let's begin. 1. The price of speaking without thinking. There's something you need to hear carefully. Not everything that crosses your mind deserves to become sound. A lot of the time, what we call sincerity is really just pure impulsiveness in disguise. And when you let every thought spill out of your mouth, you're not being authentic. You're being a prisoner of your own tongue. The Stoics understood it well. If you can't control what you say, you're not in control of your life either. Imagine that every word is like a gold coin. If you spend them carelessly, you'll soon go bankrupt. But if you choose carefully where to place them, each one multiplies in value. That's what happens with your voice. You can waste it on useless arguments or invest it in silences that inspire respect. Speaking less doesn't mean staying quiet out of fear. It's learning to master your inner power. Has it ever happened to you that you blurt something out and the second it leaves your mouth, you already want to take it back? You're not the only one. It happens to all of us. Picture a random scene. You've just finished a long, exhausting day at work. You get home, and someone hits you with a complaint. In that moment, tired and low on patience, your first reaction is to defend yourself, loudly. And that's when you lose. Because that sentence you say on impulse weighs more than everything good you've done before. Of course it's happened to you. You say something in the heat of the moment, and seconds later, it's already sitting heavy in your chest. And the funny thing is, Marcus Aurelius went through it too. In his writings, he admitted he had often regretted speaking, but never once regretted staying silent. That wasn't a poetic flourish. It came from someone who had felt exactly what you feel, and who understood that silence often weighs less than a word thrown out without thinking. We live surrounded by noise. Everyone wants to have an opinion, to shout louder, to always have the last word. But think about the people you truly admire. They're not the ones who talk non-stop. They're the ones who know how to say exactly what's needed, exactly when it's needed. And the Stoics understood that perfectly. They didn't say the first thing that came into their heads. They gave themselves that pause of silence to not be ruled by impulse. And the interesting part is that this tiny habit changes everything. What could have become a pointless fight turns into a calm response that leaves you standing tall and clear-headed. Now, my friend, I know it's not easy. We've all felt that urgency to react on the spot, like the only option is to let it all out. But listen, there are simple ways to train this. For example, the next time someone provokes you, instead of answering right away, stay silent for a few seconds. It might feel strange, even awkward, but you'll see how that silence speaks louder than you think. It's like you're saying, I don't play at this level. I'm in control. And if you really feel like you can't hold it in, make up a mental trick. For example, count to 3 while imagining you're holding an ice cream cone. And if you open your mouth too fast, it's going to melt all over you. Or picture yourself like a movie character who stays silent right before dropping the epic line. It might sound silly, but those little games trick your brain and give you just enough time to stop yourself from firing off the first thing that pops into your head. Another strategy that works is turning your immediate reaction into a question. Imagine you're at work, and someone snaps at you saying, "You're always late." Instead of snapping back with a "Look who's talking," you could calmly ask, "What do you need from me so this doesn't bother you anymore?" That question diffuses the tension and shifts the whole dynamic. You've turned a fight into a chance to understand. And there's something else you can try. Visualize your words like permanent messages, as if everything you say is being written down forever. Before speaking, ask yourself, would I sign this with my name? If the answer is no, don't say it. This is a powerful habit because it forces you to give weight to your words. And suddenly, a lot of sentences stop feeling worth it. It's not about always staying silent. It's about staying silent at the right time. Because silence isn't absence, it's presence. It's the space that lets you listen better, think more clearly, and act with intention. Every time you choose not to speak out of impulse, you're building a stronger version of yourself. And here's something I want to leave you with, just to think about. What if your real power isn't in what you say, but in what you're able to keep to yourself? 2. Silence protects your dreams. Do you know why the Stoics cared so much about speaking less? Because they understood that every word is a moral decision. Epictetus used to say that freedom begins with how we control what's within our power. And tell me, what's more within your control than your own tongue? When you share your plans carelessly, what you're giving away isn't just words. You're handing over your energy, your focus, even your willpower. A true Stoic doesn't brag about what they're going to do. They focus on doing it. And when the results come, they speak for themselves. But of course, we don't know how to keep quiet. That's the most common mistake. We think that talking about our plans brings us closer to achieving them. And it's exactly the opposite. The more you talk about what you're going to do, the less energy you have left to actually do it. It's like every word you let out is a leak in your motivation tank. And by the time it's time to act, you've already run out of gas. I'm sure you know someone like that. The type who announces every Monday that they're starting the gym, even posts it on Instagram, but ends up on the couch with a bowl of popcorn. Or the one who says they've been working on a business idea for years, but the only thing they've actually prepared is the speech they give at family dinners. The noise gives them the illusion of progress, but In reality, they're standing still. Something similar even happened to me at work. We were in the middle of an internal competition for an important project, the kind that could get you noticed by the higher-ups. The idea was that each person would present a proposal, and the best one would move forward. I had been thinking about mine for days, researching, fine-tuning every detail. I was excited and feeling confident. I told a colleague I considered a friend. I wanted to share my enthusiasm, maybe even get his opinion. Do you know what he did? The following week, he presented the same idea as if it were his. He disguised it with a couple of minor tweaks, but it was mine, point by point. I was stunned. That bitter mix of betrayal and anger stayed with me for weeks, and the worst part is that I learned the lesson the hard way. If I had protected that project with silence, no one could have stolen it from me. That day, I understood something clearly. What truly protects your dreams is silence. Because when you talk too much, you leave your plans exposed to criticism, to mockery, or to betrayal. But when you keep them to yourself, they remain yours, untouched, ready to grow without interference. The Stoics would tell us something very simple. Speak less, act more. Seneca warned that those who chase applause never reach virtue, because they're always focused on how others see them. And that's the big trap of talking too much. You shift your focus from yourself to everyone else. So what can you do? Start treating your goals like treasure. Lock them away. And if you really need to share them, do it only with someone who will hold you accountable, not with someone who will just hand you a lazy compliment. Picture a true friend looking you in the eye and asking, "Okay, but have you actually started?" That kind of discomfort is way more valuable than 20 rounds of applause. And if you still feel like it's burning inside you, and you have to let it out somehow, write it down. Do what Marcus Aurelius did. Put your goals on paper, just for you. Every time you read them, you're reminding yourself of your commitment without wasting a single word out loud. There are simple tricks to slow down your tongue. One fun one is to imagine that every time you talk about a goal, the universe deducts motivation from you, like a tax. Or think of your goals like freshly planted seeds. If you pull them out too soon to show them off, they'll never grow. That kind of image helps you stay quiet, especially when you're dying to speak. Look around you. The people who truly surprise others aren't the ones making announcements. They're the ones who suddenly show up with results no one saw coming. Those are the ones who earn respect. And that respect is built in silence. And if you look closely, Marcus Aurelius practiced this. In meditations, he reminded himself that action is what gives meaning, not showing off. He wasn't writing to impress others, he was writing to hold himself accountable. And if you think about it, that's real Stoic discipline. You don't need to announce your greatness. True greatness reveals itself. My friend, think of a rocket. While it's being prepared, everything happens away from the spotlight. Calculations, tests, adjustments. It might look like nothing's happening, but actually everything is happening. And only when it's ready, it takes off with a roar no one can ignore. That's how your dreams should be. Protected in silence until they're ready to shine. Tell me in the comments, has it ever happened to you that you spoke too soon and someone took your idea or crushed your excitement? Share it. Your story might help someone else protect their dreams in silence. And if you want to sum it up in one sentence, write in the comments, "Silence is my shield. Make it yours from now on, and remember it every time you feel the urge to share everything too soon." 3. Those who listen understand more. I'm sure it's happened to you. You're sharing something important, something that really worries you, and you can tell the other person is physically there, but mentally already somewhere else. They nod, but their eyes are already searching for their turn to jump in, and the moment you pause, boom. That reminds me of the time when And just like that, everything shifts. What you were saying fades into the background. You feel invisible, like your words were just a bridge for the other person to start talking about themselves. And the strange thing is, if we're honest, we've all done it too. We've become so used to talking, we've forgotten the art of listening. The Stoics saw this coming. Epictetus, who was once a slave before becoming a teacher, used to repeat a simple line: "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so we can listen more and talk less." Sounds like a joke, but it wasn't. He said it because he understood that the person who talks too much learns nothing. They only repeat what they already know. But the one who listens opens up to the world, learns, understands, transforms. And the irony is, when you listen more, not only do you understand better, you also become more interesting. These days, everyone wants to give their opinion, correct others, interrupt, be right. But very few people truly know how to listen. And that's exactly why, when someone actually does it, when they give their full attention without rehearsing their response, they stand out. It's not that they say a lot, it's that they know when not to speak. And that, my friend, makes them someone others naturally turn to. Think of someone you really respect. Maybe a teacher, a boss, a relative. You probably remember them fondly, not because of everything they said, but because of how they listened. Because when you spoke, it didn't feel like they were just preparing their reply. They were actually trying to understand you. That's what stays with us, the feeling of being truly seen. Now picture this, running a company with over 200,000 employees across the globe. $1-million decisions every week, meetings with politicians, shareholders, staff. The normal reaction would be to dominate the room, assert authority with words. But Indra Nooyi, former CEO of PepsiCo, did the exact opposite. In her memoirs, she shared an unusual habit. Whenever someone entered her office, she'd close her laptop, put her phone aside, and go silent, looking at them directly. She didn't interrupt, didn't jump in. She just listened. That silence, which could have felt awkward, turned into respect. The person sitting across from her felt truly heard, not as a formality, but as someone who mattered. And that small detail was what helped her make better decisions, because she didn't build her judgment on her voice alone, but on the voices of everyone brave enough to speak to her. Her leadership wasn't about talking more, it was about listening better. That's what made her one of the most influential women in the business world. And the fascinating thing is, without realizing it, she was applying the exact principle Epictetus taught 2,000 years ago. We have 2 ears and only 1 mouth. And that's no accident. That's the power of silence. When you stay quiet and listen, you understand more. And when you understand more, you speak with greater clarity. Your words carry more weight because they're not impulsive. They're the result of paying attention. Marcus Aurelius practiced this in his daily life. As emperor, he was surrounded by people trying to impress him with words. But he looked for the opposite, to understand before making decisions. In meditations, he reminded himself not to rush to judgment, not to respond right away, because he knew that listening first gave him a wider view. That calmness allowed him to rule in the middle of chaos. Now, don't get me wrong, listening doesn't mean staying frozen like a statue. Listening is active. It's looking someone in the eye, putting your phone away, showing with your presence that you're there. It's making small pauses so the other person feels space. It's even using silence as a tool to let them keep speaking and open up more. Next time someone's talking and you feel the urge to interrupt, picture a mute button on your mouth. Bite your tongue for just 1 second, like a host waiting for the signal from the director. That pause, as silly as it sounds, changes the whole conversation. Because in that second, you shift from reacting to actually listening. You can also try repeating back what they said, like a mirror. If your sister tells you, "I'm exhausted," "I don't have time for anything," instead of tossing out a quick fix like, "Well, you should manage your time better," try saying, "So what's weighing on you most is feeling like you don't have time for yourself, right?" That simple gesture makes her feel heard, and that opens the door to a real conversation. In the end, the Stoics made one thing clear. It's not about talking a lot, it's about speaking with purpose. The wise observe, stay quiet, listen, and when they finally speak, they do it with weight, with precision, with impact. 4. Silence puts out fires. Picture a pressure cooker on the stove. It's full, bubbling, the lid trembling from all the steam inside. If you open it suddenly, the explosion is guaranteed. Now take that image and apply it to yourself. Every day you accumulate tension, disappointment, small frustrations, and then someone throws a random comment your way, maybe even with good intentions, but because you're already at the edge, you lift the lid all at once. And what comes out isn't your best self. It's all that built-up steam that burns through everything in its path. The Stoics knew that anger is a poison that destroys the person who feels it first. Seneca explained it harshly. Anger is like a poison that harms the container before it ever reaches what it's poured onto. In other words, you hurt yourself before you hurt anyone else. And the worst part is, when you speak from that place, the words aren't even yours anymore. They belong to your rage. And rage doesn't want to build, it wants to destroy. Has it ever happened to you? You get home after a long day. Traffic, unanswered emails, a meeting that dragged on too long. Your mind is overloaded and your body is begging for rest. You barely drop your keys on the table and sink into the couch, craving absolute silence. And right at that moment, your partner says, "Can you take out the trash?" It's been sitting there for days, nothing serious. It's a small favor, almost nothing. But your mouth, loaded with everything you've been holding in, fires back. Seriously? Now, can't you do it yourself? And the entire atmosphere shifts in a second. Awkward silence, a look of frustration. The other person turns and walks away without saying a word. And there you are, heart racing, with that bitter pit in your stomach. 2 minutes later, you know it. It wasn't a big deal. Taking out the trash isn't the end of the world. The problem wasn't the request. It was everything you were already carrying inside. The day's pressure blew up through the first crack it found. That innocent comment was just the spark. You brought the fire, and the funny thing is, you end up taking out the trash anyway. But now with double the weight, the bin in one hand and guilt in the other. You walk to the container thinking, "Did I really blow up over this?" And that's when you realize what came out of your mouth wasn't your voice. It was your exhaustion speaking for you. That's exactly what Marcus Aurelius was trying to remind himself in Meditations. Not to be dragged around by emotions, not to give in to the first impulse. Because no one can force you to react with anger. Only you can do that. And when you think about it, that's an incredibly powerful tool. Even in the worst moments, you can choose silence. That one choice changes everything. Today, psychology agrees with the Stoics. Neurologist Paul Ekman, an expert in emotions, showed that anger activates the body as if there's a real threat. Your heart beats faster, your breathing speeds up, your brain wants to react immediately. But if you can hold off just a few seconds, the storm calms enough for your rational mind to come back online. What could have been a full-blown attack turns into a more thoughtful response. So, my friend, here's a simple technique. Write down whatever's in your head at that moment, but don't say it. Pretend you're typing an angry WhatsApp message and save it to drafts. Then read it a little later. I promise 90% of the time it'll sound ridiculous. I've tried it, and I even laughed at myself thinking I was really about to say that out loud. That timeout is gold, and while you wait, move. Leave the room, open a window, drink cold water, play your favorite song. Yes, even dancing alone in your living room counts. Your body needs to release that energy so your mind can calm down. Once you're more grounded, ask yourself a Stoic question. Was it really that moment that triggered me? Or was it everything I've been carrying? Most of the time, you're not exploding because of what was just said, but because of what you've been bottling up for days. And if you don't take that pause, you end up punishing the people who least deserve it. My friend, anyone can control what they say when they're at peace. But staying silent when you're burning inside, that's true strength. That's what earns you respect, serenity, and inner power. Because yes, even if you apologize afterward, words once spoken don't come back. The fire goes out, but the ashes remain. 5. Learn to filter who you open your soul to. Think about it for a second. Would you give the keys to your house to someone you barely know? Probably not. And yet, with our emotions, we do exactly that. We hand over the keys to our most intimate self to people who haven't earned our trust. And of course, when they misuse them, we're shocked. The Stoics were very clear about this danger. They knew that your vulnerability is like a seed. If you plant it in fertile soil, a proven friendship, someone who's shown loyalty, it will grow and bear fruit. But if you toss it anywhere, without checking where it lands, it will most likely wither or get trampled. It's not about hiding the seed. It's about choosing the right place to plant it. Epictetus put it bluntly, if you give your secret to someone, it's no longer yours. It's a harsh truth, but a real one. What you confide is no longer in your control. That's why not everything deserves to be shared with just anyone. It's not about hiding who you are. It's about protecting what still needs silence to heal. Now picture this. You're at work, chatting with a group of colleagues. One day in confidence, you tell one of them that public speaking makes you nervous. You're hoping for some understanding. A few weeks later during a meeting, it's your turn to present. And right before you begin, that colleague blurts out, laughing, "Let's hope he doesn't freeze up today." The whole room laughs, and you're left frozen, face burning. What you shared in confidence was used to expose you. Whose mistake was it? Of course, the one who betrayed your trust, but also yours for giving too much without filtering. Marcus Aurelius understood this. In Meditations, he wrote, "Don't waste time debating what it means to be a good man. Be one." He could have said the same thing to your coworker. But here's one thing that's certain. You can't control what others say. What you can do is speak less. You don't need everyone to know your wounds in order to validate who you are. Your worth lies in how you live, not in how many people know your vulnerable side. The problem is we confuse closeness with trust. Someone makes you laugh, the conversation flows, and suddenly you feel like you can open up. But liking someone isn't the same as trusting them. A smile isn't proof of loyalty, and that's where the mistake lies. Giving too much, too soon. I see it a lot on social media too. People exposing their private lives to thousands of strangers, looking for support. And sure, they get all kinds of comments. Some empathetic, others cruel. In the end, instead of finding relief, they feel even more hurt. Because they gave access to anyone, without a filter. So what can you do to avoid handing your vulnerability to just anyone? First, observe. Don't rush. Before opening up to someone, watch how they treat other people's stories. If you see them joking about other people's secrets, there's your answer. They'll do the same with yours. Another key is to start small. You don't have to reveal your deepest wound in the first conversation. Test the waters with something light, something that won't hurt if it gets shared. If the person respects it, maybe they deserve another step. If not, better that the test involves something trivial, not your soul. You can also work on a lot of this in solitude. The Stoics were masters of writing down their thoughts before speaking them. Try it. When you feel the urge to share something intimate, write it down first. Read it again the next day and ask yourself, do I really want to share this? Or do I already feel better just having written it down? You'd be surprised how healing it can be just to express yourself without an audience. Marcus Aurelius spoke to himself in his private notes, not to impress anyone, but to organize his thoughts. You can do the same. Write, reflect, even reach out to a professional if you need someone to walk with you. But don't turn your wounds into currency in exchange for acceptance. And don't forget to surround yourself with the right people. You don't need an army of confidants, just one or two who show, through actions, that they know how to protect what you give them. Sometimes we think that opening up to everyone makes us freer. But in reality, what gives you freedom is choosing wisely who gets access to the most fragile parts of you. My friend, this isn't about staying silent out of fear or walking around mistrusting everyone. It's about speaking with intention, protecting your process, opening up only when you know you're being listened to with respect. Because not everyone deserves to know your weak spots. And when you learn to filter, you discover something powerful. Your silence is also strength, and your dignity has nothing to do with how many people know your scars. 6. Silence opens more doors than words. There are moments when silence isn't empty. It's a signal, a strategy. Think about it. You're in the middle of a heated work meeting where everyone's trying to be right. Every sentence crashes into the next like waves against a cliff. There are numbers, egos, and not much time. One person defends their idea by yelling. Another interrupts to correct every detail. The tension rises, but you choose not to fight for the mic. You take notes. You observe. People glance at you, curious. When they finally stop talking, you ask one short question that shifts everything. What's the real goal here? Silence. That's when the real conversation begins. Epictetus understood this like few others. Just imagine his life. He went from being a slave to becoming a philosopher, surrounded by people who tried to trap him in arguments or provoke him into reacting. And what did he do? He listened, a lot, calmly. He knew that by speaking less he understood more, and that understanding was his real strength. He used to say, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen more and speak less." Sounds like a joke, like something your grandmother might say at dinner, but it was a life strategy. Because the one who talks non-stop only recycles what they already know, but the one who listens multiplies their knowledge without wasting breath. And here's the irony. Many people went into debates with Epictetus thinking they'd outsmart him, but instead of jumping to respond, he stayed silent, listening to every word. And of course, the other person would start getting nervous, talk too much, contradict themselves. Epictetus just had to smile a little and drop a short, precise sentence. And suddenly everyone was thinking. In the end, it felt like he won, without even fighting. Here's a familiar scene, family lunch. The conversation spirals. Holidays, money, politics, all mixed together. Someone throws a jab at you. You feel the heat rising. In the past, you would have hit back. This time you take a sip of water and calmly look at the person. You don't answer. You listen a bit more. And then you realize, behind the tone, there's exhaustion, or fear, or a need for attention. And your response changes. Fewer words. No fight. If Epictetus were alive today, he'd be that uncle at the family dinner who stays quiet the whole time, smiling, and at the end drops one line that leaves everyone speechless. You argued for 20 minutes. He spoke for 20 seconds. And somehow, he still won. It's not magic, and it's the power of listening to win instead of speaking without measure. My friend, listening doesn't mean staying silent like a statue. Listening is active. It's physical and mental. Physical, open posture, phone face down, eyes present. Mental, curiosity. Instead of preparing your response, you prepare to understand. That shift is noticeable. It breaks down defenses. It builds trust. There's a small physical trick that helps when your tongue is itching to jump in. Press your thumb and index finger together in your pocket for 3 deep breaths. No one sees it, but your body registers pause. Another option, mentally count 1, 2, 3 while holding eye contact. That microspace is gold. That's where you choose whether to react or respond. Seneca warned that many arguments burn out on their own. If you take away the fuel, and what's the fuel? The immediate comeback. If you train yourself to pause, the spark won't catch. And if you truly listen, you'll find the exact point where one sentence, not 20, makes the impact. Speaking less also protects you from mistakes. When you try to fill every gap out of nerves, you end up saying what you shouldn't, promising what you can't deliver, or revealing things no one needed to know. But the one who listens senses timing and balance. They say only what's necessary, and what's necessary carries weight. There are days when silence is the best investment. It saves you from future apologies. It gives you time to think. It helps you see the full picture. And above all, it makes you more helpful to others, because someone who listens well is someone who helps well. It also helps to have bridge phrases ready for tense moments. Short, neutral, breathable lines like, "I need a second to think about it." "I want to understand you better." "Give me a moment, please." These aren't walls, they're doors. They open up better conversations. They give you time without sounding like an escape, and they keep you grounded. Remember this the next time you feel tempted to assert yourself with volume. Speaking loudly grabs attention. Speaking with purpose holds it. Silence helps you choose the second. And when you finally speak, the words come out clean, without ego, without noise, with intention. Speak less, listen more. It's not a slogan. It's a way of being. A way that makes you unbreakable on the inside and clear on the outside. From there, every word matters. And so does every silence. Now it's your turn. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever gained more by staying quiet than by speaking? Share your story. It might inspire someone who's still afraid to listen more than they speak. Or if you prefer to say it in just one line, write, "I listen to win." Make it yours from today on, and remember, sometimes silence is the strongest word of all. 7. When you stay quiet and take action, no one can stop you. Think of a storm in the middle of the ocean. The wind screams, waves crash, everything looks chaotic. But deep down, beneath the surface, the water remains calm, steady, untouched. That's the difference between words and action. Above, noise. Below, power. The world is full of voices making promises, announcing plans, making noise like that storm. But true power belongs to the one who, like the deep sea, works in silence and lets their actions speak for them. Everyone talks about what they're going to do. This year I'll change. I'm launching my business. I'm getting in shape. Words, promises, noise, and then nothing. Life goes on just the same. Because in a world where everyone talks, the one who works in silence is the one who truly surprises. And the fascinating thing is, the Stoics warned us about this centuries ago. Talking about what you're going to do doesn't bring you closer to your goal. It takes you further from it. Epictetus put it sharply. Don't pride yourself on what you haven't done yet, because while you're busy announcing it, you lose the energy you need to actually act. Let me tell you about Eliud Kipchoge, the marathon runner who broke the 2-hour barrier. His achievement is now part of history, but what most people never talk about is how he did it. While other athletes filled press conferences talking about what they were going to accomplish, he chose another path, to stay quiet and train. He wasn't chasing big headlines. He was chasing miles. Day after day in silence, listening to his body, his breath, his team. Learning from every detail, adjusting every step. He wasn't a headline athlete. He was a man of discipline. While others were showing off their routines on social media, Kipchoge was running at dawn on the roads of Kenya, far from the cameras. His voice wasn't in interviews. It was in the sound of his shoes hitting the pavement. And here's the incredible part. When the big day came, he didn't need speeches to convince anyone. The whole world watched him run, minute by minute, until he crossed the finish line and the clock showed the impossible, under 2 hours. Suddenly, everyone was talking about him, and he, with the calm that defines him, summed it up in a single line. Records are broken in silence, step by step, kilometer by kilometer. That's the power of speaking less and doing more. Kipchoge understood that every word he didn't waste on promises, he invested in action. And that in the end, respect isn't earned through announcements, it's earned through results. You don't have to be an athlete to get this. I'm sure it's happened to you too. You said, I'm going to learn English. I'm going to save money. And in the end, nothing. You drained yourself talking about it, looking for a little validation. But you didn't act. The words sounded big, but they were empty. Action, on the other hand, doesn't need a megaphone. And this is where Marcus Aurelius hits us with one of those truths that cuts across time. Most of what we say and do is not essential. If you can eliminate it, you'll have more time and peace. Do you see it? If you cut the noise, if you stop spending your energy talking about what you're going to do, suddenly there's room for what matters, doing it. And if Marcus Aurelius had a Twitter account today, he wouldn't be posting motivational quotes every morning. He wouldn't be tweeting discipline mode on or posting selfies of his routine with fire emojis. None of that. He'd wake up, train his mind, write in his journal, and live like an emperor. And centuries later, here you are, admiring his example, all without him ever posting a single story. So how can you apply this? Start by changing your language. Instead of saying, "I'm going to start," switch it to, "I already started." And if you haven't started yet, stay silent, because every time you talk about something without doing it, your brain gets comfortable with the illusion of progress. Do first, speak later. Also, keep a private log. Buy a notebook or use a note on your phone. Write down what you did today, trained, read, saved money, whatever it is. Don't post it. Let it be your space. Because real progress isn't measured in likes, it's measured in consistency. And when you feel the urge to talk just so others will applaud, pause and ask yourself, do I want to impress or do I want to improve? If what you're chasing is validation, wait. Let your actions be so solid they speak for themselves. No explanation needed. My friend, I'm not saying live in hiding. I'm saying become so steady that your life becomes your best speech. That one day people look at you and say, I didn't see that coming. And that's the secret. When you speak less and listen more, even to yourself, your actions end up shouting louder than your words ever could. 8. Stop feeding complaints with your voice. Tell me the truth. How many times a day do you complain? 5? 10? More than 20? I'm sick of this job. I never have time. Life's not fair. Sound familiar? Of course. We've all said those things. And the worst part is, some of them slip out without us even realizing, like a stuck chorus on repeat. But let me ask you, do you think a Stoic would do that? Now think, have those complaints ever solved anything for you? Did your boss change because you repeated it out loud? Did your life become fairer because you said it? Number. The problem stays the same, and you end up even more drained. Complaining is like a catchy song you can't get out of your head. You repeat it over and over, and the more you sing it, the louder it gets. But be careful. Complaining doesn't release tension, it amplifies it. It's like having a leaky ceiling, and instead of fixing it, you go around telling everyone it's dripping. The floor still gets wet, and you stay stuck in the same scene. Seneca warned about something similar. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. And that's exactly what complaining does. It forces you to relive the problem in your head and out loud until it seems even bigger than it is. Every time you talk about it, you're adding fuel to the fire. And the more you talk about it, the more trapped you become. Picture this. You wake up early, already running late. No coffee in the kitchen. Of course, there's never anything in this house. You rush out, and the bus is delayed. Just my luck. This always happens to me. You get to work and your boss throws something urgent at you. I can't catch a break for a second. At lunch, chatting with a coworker, I'm exhausted. This life is too much. And that night, on the couch watching a show you don't even care about, you sigh. I never have time for myself. See it now? You've been complaining all day. And here's the strange part. Nothing changed. The coffee didn't magically appear, the bus still came late, your boss kept being your boss. The only difference is that you ended the day even more drained. Now imagine rewriting that same day. You wake up and there's no coffee. Instead of complaining, you add it to the shopping list. The bus is delayed. You use the time to listen to a podcast or just breathe. Your boss throws a task at you. You take a breath and think, all right, I'll handle this and move on. Your coworker vents about being tired, and instead of trying to one-up their exhaustion with yours, you simply listen. The result? Same schedule, but way less emotional baggage. Try it for one day. Count how many times you complain out loud. Just observe. You'll realize it's way more than you thought. That's the first step. Noticing the noise you're creating. And once you see it, rewrite the script. Instead of repeating the same old line, ask a question. If you say, "I don't have time," try, "What can I remove to make space?" If you think, "This always happens to me," ask, "What can I do differently this time?" That small pause pulls you out of the victim role and puts you in the driver's seat. It also helps to stay silent. You've got to train that discipline. If you're not going to take action, don't say it. It's not repression, it's strategy. Every word you waste on a useless complaint is energy you don't invest in something that actually matters. Sometimes silence isn't about holding back. It's about saving your strength for where it counts. And if you really need to let it out, don't just dump it on anyone. Grab a piece of paper and write it down. Get it all out there. Then read it back and ask yourself, what part of this is actually under my control? What is? Turn it into a plan. What isn't? Crumple it and throw it away. You'll be surprised how much your perspective shifts. Remember what Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you interpret it." That's the key. Every time you choose to complain, you're interpreting life through the lens of helplessness. You're repeating, "I can't." And the more you say it, the more you believe it. Because in the end, all of this is about learning to silence what doesn't build you and redirecting your energy toward what actually does. And if right now you feel like your mouth still moves faster than your mind, don't worry. We've got another video coming up on screen that's exactly what you need. It'll show you how to break that cycle and finally start taking real control. 9. Speaking less. Also means setting boundaries. I know, my friend, and saying no feels uncomfortable. It makes you feel guilty, like you're being selfish. But listen closely. Every time you say yes just to avoid disappointing someone, you're saying no to your peace, your time, and your energy. And even if the other person doesn't notice, you do. Because deep down, you know you're betraying yourself. The Stoics understood this clearly. There's nothing more enslaving than letting others make decisions for you through your own awkward silence. That's why Epictetus said, "True freedom begins in the mind, not in your circumstances." And part of that freedom is daring to set boundaries. Picture this, it's Saturday afternoon, your only real day to rest. You've planned the perfect escape: couch, blanket, a good book, or that show you've been hooked on. Nothing extravagant, but it's your little refuge. And then your phone buzzes. It's a friend. "Hey, want to come help me shop for a few things?" I promise it'll be quick. You know you don't want to. You know you don't feel like spending 3 hours hauling bags and waiting outside dressing rooms. But your fingers type automatically, "Sure, of course." And suddenly, you're pushing a shopping cart full of things you don't care about, staring at the clock, wishing you were back home. All because you didn't stop that automatic yes in time. That's the price of being afraid to make others uncomfortable. And the result isn't just a lost afternoon. It's the frustration you feel with yourself. Because you knew what you wanted and didn't stand up for it. And that's an invisible wound that adds up over time. Don't think it's just you. Even people who seem the strongest have gone through the same. Rafa Nadal has admitted it in interviews. For years, he said yes to everything. Endless press conferences, interviews, sponsor events, social commitments. Even when he was exhausted, injured, or mentally somewhere else, he felt like he always had to be available. Like saying no meant letting others down. What happened? He burned out. His performance dropped. His mind wore thin. Until one day he realized that if he wanted to stay competitive and live in peace, he had to learn to say no. To speak less outwardly and listen more inwardly. From that point on, he started protecting his time with the same discipline he uses to train on the court. And that was one of the keys that extended his career. And now tell me, isn't that exactly what happens to you? Sure, maybe you're not at Roland Garros with thousands of people cheering, but life demands your energy too. And if you waste it on commitments you never wanted, you'll have none left for what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius captured this perfectly with a phrase that seems tailor-made for this issue. Do what nature requires of you, and don't get distracted by the rest. And the rest is that yes, you gave out of fear of looking bad. even though your nature was asking you to rest. Say no and take care of yourself. So how do you train this? With small steps. Next time someone asks you for something and you're not sure if you want to do it, don't answer right away. Use a simple line. Let me think about it and get back to you. It might not seem like much, but that pause breaks the autopilot. It gives you a moment to listen to what you really want. And if you decide to say no, you don't need to write an essay. "I can't today, I'm sorry," is enough. That kind of simplicity is elegant. Fewer words, but more truth. That's worth more than made-up excuses just to sound polite. If it still feels hard, try this mental exercise. Picture Seneca at a family lunch. The meal ends, and someone asks him to help clean up while everyone else chats. What would he do? He'd probably look at them calmly and say, "No. I've done my part. No guilt, no fluff, no over-explaining." And trust me, no one would dare call him selfish. Quite the opposite. It would command respect. Another trick? Listen to your body. Yes, your body. Before answering, imagine you already said yes. How does it feel? Light? Or like there's a knot in your stomach already? If your body's protesting, that's your cue. Your answer should be no. And I promise you this. The discomfort of saying no lasts a few seconds, but the frustration of saying yes can ruin your entire day. Because in the end, my friend, speaking less also means learning to stay quiet when your mouth wants to say yes out of obligation. And listening more means listening to your own needs before you worry about other people's opinions. That's the real Stoic discipline. It's not just staying quiet during arguments. It's staying quiet to protect yourself, to stop giving your energy away in empty promises. So next time you feel a yes about to slip out of your mouth just to keep the peace, pause, breathe. Remember Nadal saving his strength, Marcus Aurelius writing in silence, Seneca calmly setting a boundary. And ask yourself, do I really want to say this, or am I just trying to please? Because if you don't feel it, if it's not honest, the best thing you can do is stay silent. And in that silence, you'll find a kind of power that's worth more than 1,000 words. Self-respect. Now I want you to think about this carefully. When was the last time you said yes? When what you really wanted to say was no? Write it in the comments, because seeing it in writing makes it easier to recognize and start changing. And if you'd rather say it in a single line, write, "Today I choose to listen to myself before I respond." Let that be your reminder that every silence and every boundary you set is a step toward your freedom. 10. Fewer explanations, more clarity. Have you ever felt like you had to give a whole speech for making a simple decision? Like choosing to stay home on a Saturday suddenly requires you to present a report to a jury? Why didn't you come? Are you sure everything's okay? Do you really prefer to be alone? As if every personal choice had to come with an instruction manual for others to approve. They might seem harmless, but deep down they're like mini trials. You're put on the stand without warning, as if every step you take needs to come packaged with a convincing explanation. And without realizing it, you fall into the trap of justifying yourself. The Stoics warned us about the danger of wasting your voice on what isn't necessary. Marcus Aurelius, who had to show up every day as an emperor, wrote in Meditations that you shouldn't lose yourself in what others think, but focus on what nature requires of you. And what nature doesn't require is constant justification. What it does require is to live with coherence, even if not everyone gets it. Because let's be honest, I don't see Marcus Aurelius explaining to every senator why he woke up late that day, or giving a speech about why he skipped Friday's banquet. I can't imagine him defending his decision to write in his journal instead of going out partying with the generals. He simply lived. He made his choices. That was it. And that's the powerful lesson. If even an emperor knew not to explain every move, why should you? Speaking less and listening more starts here too. Stop wasting energy trying to convince the world, and start listening to yourself so you can walk your path in peace. Let me paint you a real-life scene. You decide to leave a job that no longer fulfills you. You weren't fired. There was no drama. It just wasn't your place anymore. You tell your family or your friends and the questions start flooding in. So, what are you going to do now? What if you regret it? What if you don't find something better? And you, even though you were completely clear about your decision, suddenly find yourself talking non-stop. You give details, you justify, you make up plans you haven't even thought through yet. All because you felt like you had to convince them, as if your decision needed to be approved by a committee of people who aren't even walking your path. And the more you talk, the more the doubt creeps in. What was once a clear decision starts to wobble. That's the danger of justifying yourself. You open the door for others to insert fear where you had placed certainty. What others didn't say, your imagination fills in. And in the end, you're no longer sure if leaving that job was the right call, or just a reckless move. Epictetus left us a line that cuts like a blade. Don't explain your philosophy. Live it. And that applies perfectly here. You don't have to explain your life just to get permission. You don't need to present your plan like a politician on a campaign trail. You just have to live it. That's the difference between someone who talks too much and someone who inspires through silence. And don't get me wrong, this isn't about being secretive or keeping things to yourself just for the sake of it. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay quiet. Speaking less is also this: not using your voice to defend yourself from accusations no one serious even has the right to make. Listening more means focusing on what actually matters. If you know why you're doing something, what difference does it make what anyone else thinks? Here's the practical part. Before you explain yourself, ask one honest question. Am I saying this so they understand, or so I'll feel accepted? Because if it's the second one, you're entering a dangerous game. You're trading your well-being for approval. And trust me, that kind of currency always loses value. Start training short, neutral, clear answers. Say things like, "It's something I decided for myself. It feels right." That's it. No attack, no justification, no room for debate. Just information. And that's enough. I've tried it myself. The first time it feels scary, like the world might explode. But what actually happens is interesting. People are left speechless, because there's no argument against clarity. Another powerful tool is silence, used with elegance. Not tense silence, but the kind that shows not everything needs an explanation. Sometimes a smile, a subject change, or a calm, "I'd rather not get into that," is all you need. It may seem simple, but that kind of gesture shows more self-respect than 1,000 made-up reasons. Remember, the Stoics didn't waste time defending every step they took. Marcus Aurelius didn't walk around Rome explaining every decision he made for the empire. Epictetus didn't explain to everyone why he chose inner freedom over physical comfort. They lived, they acted, and their lives were the explanation. That's the lesson. Your actions speak louder than your justifications. My friend, speaking less means letting go of all those explanations no one asked for, the ones that only drain you. Listening more means listening to what you feel and respecting it, because not everyone deserves an answer, and you don't have to put your soul on display like it's a shop window. So think about it. How far could you go if you stopped justifying yourself? How much lighter would life feel if you used your voice to build, not defend? Maybe the only thing you're missing to finally feel at peace isn't a more convincing answer, but a firm silence that says, without words, "I'm on my path." And that's enough. Stepping out of the noise and letting your life speak for itself. That's what really makes the difference. Because when you learn to stay quiet at the right moment, when you stop letting words slip out just out of habit, what you do carries more weight than any speech. And believe me, you don't need to shout for the world to hear you. You just need to live with clarity. If you made it this far, tell me in the comments, what's one thing you'll choose to stay quiet about starting today to gain more peace? And if you'd rather keep it simple, write, "My silence builds more than my words." Reaching the end of this video is no accident. It means something in you wants to grow. And that already sets you apart from most. Subscribe and share this video with someone who needs it. That simple gesture helps us keep spreading this message of growth. On screen, you'll find a playlist to go even deeper. Click and let's keep learning together.